Hey everyone, I'm Zach Rice, and welcome to another Big Time AMA. Today, I'm joined with Matt Tonks, our CTO. Matt, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Matt has all of the answers to the community's burning questions. And speaking of which, the community has some great ones for us today. And Matt, I know you're a very busy man. So without further ado, let's get right into it, man. Question number one. If you would, please say more about PvP. And will it be through PvE or direct PvP like duels between players? And part two to this, how will the economy take part in it?
Sure. Yeah. So this is something we're pretty excited about, and actually we're working on right now. So our focus for the .3.1 patch is going to be PvP, and realistically, that means that it'll be the very first version of PvP. We plan on iterating on it even after it's released and adding more game modes, and we'll see what people like and what we don't, or what people don't like, and we'll kind of steer things in the direction that makes sense after we've gotten some more data. But should give you a little bit more background. I can see how it would be confusing because we've talked about PvE and PvP and PvEVP. But the reason why it's confusing is because the game mode that we're planning on doing first is, and this is what we're working on right now, is a little bit of both. So you can think of it as something like League of Legends has a little bit of this kind of element of it where, or Dota, where you start in the game with your team, and there's a little bit of creeping. You're running around the world and you're trying to level up your character and get better gear and kind of be prepared for that final or maybe initial combat between the players and the enemy players and your team. So there's definitely going to be a strong PvE element in the PvP mode, and that'll be, like I said, it's important for creeping to kind of get your character all powered up as much as it can, but it also gives players a little bit of a choice, right? Like they can try to rush out and go engage the enemy right away. They can try to hang back and kind of get a little bit more powerful or try and find those good gear drops. And it sort of introduces some more strategy to it where it's not all just like right away head to head. Also, the PvE elements will provide sort of better than average drops at this stage, so better than you'd see in a prestige portal or in kind of a normal dungeon run. So there's like, the greedy players are going to want to like run around all the PvE and try and collect as much stuff as they can. Meantime, there's very high danger where if you're not paying attention, you might come or you might find that you get ganked from behind as the other team gets into your area or whatever. So there's just a little bit more risk and a little bit more reward in everything that is going on at this stage. And then and kind of the culmination of this mode is more pure PvP, where all the teams that were PvEing at first kind of get and graduate into this center area, which everyone's competing over. So this is kind of the final moment where the best team is going to come out on top. And again, this is kind of another strategy point where a team could try to rush through the PvE part of it and get strong enough that they can actually complete the center objective and win the match by just getting there first. But of course, that's risky because if they kind of push their luck too much and they die on the way there, or they encounter another team that's stronger than them, they might get booted out of the match early. So it's all a little bit of a toss-up in terms of what's going to be the strategy that wins. But it's really, the point is to give players that higher risk, higher reward environment where there's still PvE things to do that they know and are familiar with, where you're trying to get mobs, you're trying to kill bosses and complete objectives, and there's high rewards for that, but there's a lot more risk too, because other players could come in and kind of take your rewards from you.
Yeah.
And then sort of the second part of that question is, or maybe it's the second part of the first part, is whether we're going to do duels and direct PvP and things like that. We probably won't do that right away, at least not in .3.1. But like I said, we plan to add more game modes in the future. Like this is what we're calling PvEVP. We'll probably add direct like team deathmatch style game modes in the future, and maybe even come up with some other cool game modes that we want to do. This is really just, we think it's very important that we fail fast, and by that we mean get things out in the hands of real players and figure out what works and what doesn't as quickly as possible, so that we can react as quickly as possible. We are under no illusions that the very first attempt at anything that we do is going to be perfect on the first try. We're human. We're running very short timelines, and that just in any game development ever, that's never the case. Even the AAA or quadruple A productions, the first time something gets in the hands of the players, they fix things. That's why there's patches. So we want to make sure that we're keeping that cycle going as fast as possible, and leveraging player feedback as much as we can, as early as we can, because the worst thing would be we spend a whole bunch of time on something that people don't like, and then we release it, and it's like, whoops, maybe we should have checked that out a little bit sooner. So I think that answers the question, but maybe I forgot the second part. What was the second part again?
It was how will the economy take part?
Yes, yeah. Good question. Okay, so this for this PvEVP mode, in order to enter the match, you'll need to. Okay, let me preface this by saying this is our current thinking, and this is what we're prototyping right now. This could all change. We're just in the prototype phase, and if we find that this isn't working for us or we want to change it, we might do that. So don't be mad or upset if what I say doesn't end up being what we ship exactly. And if it's not what we shipped exactly, it's for a very good reason, probably because we found out some issue with it. But our current planning is, in order to get into the match, you and your team have to put some money, or rather big time token, or possibly in-game currency, maybe a combination of those things, on the line. So there's like a entry fee, or you have to pay to play kind of thing. And then the winner of the match takes the prize pool. So almost all of the winnings, aside from what you get from killing mobs and things like that, will be coming from players, which is an exciting element to this, because again, more risk, more reward. You're risking whatever you're putting in up front, and the reward is going to be much bigger than what you'd see from a typical dungeon run. Obviously, that if you come out on top of this match, your team is going to get a big prize pool. That's really the main inflow to the economy for this mode, is just that it's more directly tied to the economy in terms of winnings than you'd see in a normal prestige dungeon, or a normal dungeon especially. Yeah.
Gotcha. Like a pink slip in drag racing. That's very cool.
Yeah, something like, or a poker game, I guess, another good example. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Question 2. When do you expect to implement workshop set bonuses, and can you provide insight on how this feature will work? And part 2 to this, will set bonuses provide a major or minor advantage when crafting?
So set bonuses are something we've been planning for, since all along, really. It kind of got left on the cutting room table as we were trying to get the economy out, and it was one of those things that's something we want to do, but the economy could function without it, clearly, since it has been. We still want to do it, and I think that we'll probably see that in the .3.2 release. Again, this could all change if something else comes up and timelines move around. So this isn't a promise by any means, but that's what we intend to do. .3.1 is meant to be 100% focused on PvP. We want to get PvP out as soon as possible. So anything that's not PvP is going to get pushed into 0.32 realistically. There's some other things that are being worked on by parts of the team that are not directly impacted by the PvP work. So you might see some other random things go out in 0.31 that are not PvP related, but certainly for something like that, which is going to impact the same engineers and developers as PvP does, that'll probably get pushed into 0.32. But it is something that we're still doing, and something we're still excited about. And I think, to answer the minor versus major question, I guess it's sort of subjective, but the intent is that the harder the bonus is to achieve, the more the bonus will be. So some of the set bonuses are fairly easy. Some of the bonuses might require the perfect configuration of several workshops all in the same area, or something like that. So obviously we'd scale up the impact of that based on how hard it is to actually achieve. So it'll be kind of a sliding scale, but they should all be fairly significant. I think that'll be something that people want to pay attention to for sure.
That's great. Thank you. Next up, when does early access end, and when will the game be released to the whole world?
So we are looking at removing the need for access codes soon. I know soon is not the word that people want to hear, but I can't give you dates because they haven't been announced yet, but that is something that's happening soon. It's also going to coincide with some other very exciting things that we've got lined up. So I guess I can say, maybe it helps if I say that we do have a date lined up for that, and it's probably sooner than you think. but I can't like reveal anything ahead of time. But yeah, like I said, there's going to be 3 really big announcements that are all happening around the same time that are tied to that. So that's definitely coming soon, and definitely something that we're excited about as well. This is one of the things that we've been working on that people probably don't even notice is kind of re-architecting our server infrastructure so that it can handle big spikes in users coming in. Whereas right now the servers, the backend side of the game server specifically, we're running on bare metal machines that are very fast, so we can get the most performance we can out of them. And they will continue running on bare metal machines where they're needed, like in the hubs, for example. But our infrastructure now supports offloading into the cloud for dungeon instances, which is boring for most of you because you don't ever even notice it's happening. But for us, it means that we can safely kind of remove the access code requirements and have confidence that a big influx in users is going to be handleable, right? We're not going to run out of servers because we can always just get more cloud instances from whatever cloud provider is available at the time. So that's been a big thing for us to get switched over to that. That's all done now. So now it's just a matter of kind of timing the rest of how and when we want to make all those other changes that we're going to be announcing soon. But yeah, look for that in the next few months.
Yeah, that's cool. More players, the better. Next up, in the metaverse, will it be possible to place adjacent spaces without setting up corridors like in the initial concept videos? And additionally, will it be possible to make fine adjustments to the rotation and placement, like creating a second or third floor?
I guess I don't know exactly what concept videos are being referenced here. Certainly in the short term, we're not going to be changing the way that the personal metaverse works dramatically. Those rooms need to be able to connect to one another, right? Like physically, you got to be able to run from one to the next. So the system that's in there right now ensures that that's the case. One thing that we've talked about doing, and this is, I don't know when this would happen. It certainly wouldn't be in 0.31, probably not in 0.32. So possibly in 0.33 at the earliest. But again, this is all sort of a function of many other priorities. We're a very small team, and priorities are shifting constantly as things happen. So anyway, but what I'm getting at is we would like to explore a different kind of interface for the personal metaverse that's more like a top-down RTS view, maybe is one way to think of it, where instead of like running to a door and placing a thing, like the camera pulls up and you can kind of like drag your rooms into the personal metaverse more like you would if you were building a house in The Sims or something like that. That's aspirational, and like we like I said, I don't know exactly when in the timeline that would fall. I think the system that we have right now works, so we're hesitant to really bite off a big amount of work there before we have a better idea of what the benefits would be for our players. But yeah, that's definitely something we've kicked around. And as far as like fine-tune rotation adjustments before that, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon, because if we allow the rooms to be rotated, then you break that element I was talking about before, where the hallway might not actually be able to get to the room. Like if you rotated a room away from the doorway, you wouldn't be able to walk into it. So there's some constraints, and it's sort of a complicated scenario that you have to consider all the possibilities there. But trying to do some higher level build system is definitely on the horizon, put it that way.
Great. Perfect. One day. When will female avatars become available?
Yeah, so female avatars, we haven't forgotten about them. In fact, we've been working on them this whole time. That's probably a 0.32 feature, I'm thinking. It's not PvP related, so some of that work got pushed out of 0.31. But a lot of in order to do female avatars, we have to have separate assets for all the armor. We have the character model made already for the female, but of course, it's female, so the proportions are different. So you can't just slap the male armor on there and expect it all to work. It'll all overlap and look weird. So there's hundreds of pieces of armor in the game that all have to get new assets made to work with the female character model. But we've been cranking away through that list of assets that need to get remade or adjusted. And then there's also some other things we've been working on, like female efforts, like when you jump, instead of going, huh, now you need a different sound that's right. More feminine and appropriate, and some other things like that we're kind of wrapping up. But that's we're hoping in 0.32 timeframe. And And I think we'll probably, in case anyone's interested, we'll probably tie that to the pocket watch. So whenever you equip a pocket watch for the first time, you can choose whether you want to be male or female with that pocket watch, because it's kind of like meant to be another timeline version of yourself from another universe. So if you could potentially have a male and a female pocket watch, or whatever combination of that, and switch between them as you go. But that's that part of it isn't ironed in, or isn't set in stone yet. We also talked about having people choose sort of in their character, not in their pocket watch, but we'll see. That's kind of a less important detail, I guess.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Next up, when will a friends list be implemented? It would be great to be able to whisper to friends when you see them online as well.
Yes, good news on this front. So 0.31, the next patch that we put out, or the next major update that we put out, will have a friends list. It has the new chat system that should fix a number of annoying bugs that are present in the old chat system. And that includes being able to whisper to people, and friends lists. So yeah, that one we're excited about. That should be a big win for everyone in the game. So you can kind of like get your party together and see who's online, and make a group even with everybody's not necessarily on the server at any given moment. So yeah.
Perfect. That'll be so much fun. All right, another one. When are pets coming? And please include a dog.
Pets. We love pets. This one, I don't know exactly where it falls on the roadmap, but we want to do it this year sometime. I think pets are great for many things. They'd be great NFTs. Everybody loves pets, so us included. But probably the first pets you'll see will be hovering pets, kind of like the Fixer drones, just because those are sort of the most straightforward to implement. But I'd love to do dogs, and maybe even like little raptors that follow you around, or who knows. We've even talked about, so some of the pets will probably be purely cosmetic. Some of the pets will probably not be.
Oh, wow.
We might, we want to do, if anybody's ever played Fate, we want to do Fate style pets where you can make a pet that'll like help you gather loot from the ground, or perform some menial tasks for you if you want. We're excited about all that stuff. So that's definitely coming soon. Again, I don't know exactly what release it would be in, but once we get PvP out of the way, and once we kind of get some of the latent economy features online that we've been wanting to get online, we'll probably start looking at pets and player mounts, and maybe even some more. So Epoch City shipped, well, I don't know, I'm rambling now, but Epoch City shipped in its first stage. Actually, I think there's a question about this later, maybe I should shut up. But we're going to be adding more stuff to Epoch City that's related to all this stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff that we want to do in the next few months. So yeah.
Perfect. I want pet fauna. I think that would be the cutest thing ever. All right. Yeah, you were right. Next question is about Epoch City, and it's how much longer before all of Epoch City is unlocked?
Okay. Yeah. So all of Epoch City will be forever, we'll say, because we built Epoch City to be ever expanding, right? We want to add, it's got these little island sections to it, and that was a very intentional choice so that we could add a new island and a new island and a new island. Every time we want to do some cool new thing, we can pop a new island in there that kind of adds a new bit of functionality or a new area to explore. We want to do in the first steps of this are like there's some nightclubs that we want to flesh out and explore, or even we want to do sort of like, what's the word, gated areas where in order to get into this specific nightclub, you might need to wear all green cosmetics, for example, or in order to get into this nightclub, you might need to be a certain VIP level, or maybe you need a VIP level person in your party in order to get into that nightclub. It's sort of like these little exclusive areas that have some exclusive activities that you can do inside them. Other things that we're talking about for Epoch City that I'm really excited about are things like areas where players can rent persistent slots to put their portals, their personal metaverse portals. And this would dovetail in with some of the new personal metaverse tile types that we want to make, like the trading table. So the idea would be a player could make part of their personal metaverse like a storefront, and then pay something or rent, maybe it's an NFT that allows them to have a spot in Epoch City where their portal is always there, and players can always go into it to go like see what they're selling and check out their personal metaverse. There's some other features that we need to bring online for this as well. Like we want to have a gate where players can like add permissions to let certain people through or not. This would allow people to have a personal metaverse that has like a public area and like a private area where, you know, there's the area of the personal metaverse that you're allowed to go. And then there's the public area where your trading table and whatever, all the other decorations or whatever you want to put in there that everybody can see. But that's all kind of like a, you know, part of the same type of release probably that we would do to expand on the personal metaverse idea. But that's an exciting sort of like homage to Decentraland, maybe, where it's not exactly land that you're connecting to out in Epoch City. It's just more like a little storefront socket. But I think that'll be really cool. And there's lots of other ideas like that floating around for Epoch City. So expect to see many things added to Epoch City over time.
That is really exciting. All right, more coming to the game. What is Big Time hoping to implement by the end of the year?
Oh, this one, well, we've already covered a bunch of things.
Yeah.
I think the thing I can answer with the most confidence is PvP, since that's what we're working on right now. The way Big Time works tends to be we have a big list of sort of wish list items or roadmap items that we know we want to do in the near future or sort of medium future. And then we have what we're working on in the next release. And so what we're working on for the next release, as I've already mentioned, is PvP, or specifically that PvE VP mode. And that one is complicated mostly in that it's our first step into PvP. So there's all sorts of systems that need to be tuned and created in order to make PvP work that we haven't done before at Big Time anyway. Like, for example, one thing that we're just looking at today is when you're stunning enemies, it feels pretty good to stun an enemy for 5-6 seconds and, you know, it's knocked down for that long and before it can get up. But when you're a player and you're stunned for 5 or 6 seconds, it sucks. It's so frustrating. So those sorts of so we're tuning that so that the players, when the player gets stunned, still knocks them down, but it's not quite such a long knockdown time because it's really unfun for the person on the receiving end. And that's just one of a huge list of things like that we need to iron out. Other examples are things like invisibility, where in PvE mode, your material changes on your character, and so you look kind of translucent, but you can clearly still see yourself. And if you're talking about other players, it's like, yeah, that's not fooling anyone. The AI can be fooled because we can, you know, change the code to make them not see you. But all that stuff is all kind of parceled up with the first version of PvP, and that's why we're being kind of conservative with it initially. So that's the big one. I think pets. Collection bonuses or collective bonuses. There's lots of new economy features that we haven't talked about yet that are coming online. I think some very exciting, personally to me, exciting tile sets or dungeon tile sets are coming online. So you'll see those coming in before the end of the year. Again, we haven't announced those yet, but they're sort of leaning more into the procedural generation side of things, which is pretty cool if you ask me. Let's see what else is on the list. We talked about pets and mounts. There's some other big ones that I'm forgetting, but yeah, I mean, and again, just to throw this in here, this could all change. You know, something else might come along that's way more important, and pets doesn't make it this year. That could happen. So that's not. I don't think that would happen, but we tend to be very fluid in terms of what we're working on at any given time because we want to be able to react to what's going on and in the world and in the project and with our players and so on. So hopefully that gives you a tease of some things that we're looking at. I feel like there's another thing that I'm forgetting. Oh, well, I kind of alluded to this a bit, but we want to add some more interesting personal metaverse room types, like the trading table is one. We've talked about like a dojo is another, where whenever you go into the dojo, PvP is active, so it's kind of like your dueling room. Of course, when you're in the dojo and you die, you probably just respawn right there. So, you know, it would be sort of a soft death if you want to think of it that way. Right. Or some other things are like a storage room that would allow you to have more inventory space and possibly even share that inventory space with other players. Oh, another big one that we haven't talked about that's kind of along with friends list and DMs and stuff is we want to do guilds, like true in-game guilds, that is.
Cool.
I know there's already guilds out there running that are amazing, quite frankly, that are operating in the game kind of meta style where they have their own discords and things like that. But we want to add like an in-game guild system. And realistically, that means we probably want to add like a guild's personal metaverse. So that's an interesting one. We need to sort of iron out how that would work in terms of like who would own the space that goes in that metaverse. Maybe it's space that the guild members allow to be there or something like that. But that one's exciting because then you could kind of have like a bunch of people collectively working in one set of workshops or whatever. That would be a cool one. So yeah, but anyway, one more disclaimer: we might change all this and move stuff around. Maybe there's going to be some other really cool feature that I have not thought of that's on our list that I'm forgetting that we do first. But rest assured, we're going to work on the thing that is the most important to work on at any given time. So we think PvP is a really important one right now because it gives our sort of elder game players something to do that's exciting. Obviously we're going to be adding more content as well, but quite frankly, those players are going to consume that content faster than we can add it. And we want to give something that's both exciting and rewarding for players that have been in the game for 2,000, 5,000 hours, something like that, something cool to do. And I think PvP is a great avenue for those kind of players to kind of cut their teeth against one another and jump into some higher risk, higher reward scenarios.
It'll be fantastic. I can't wait. It's gonna be awesome. Are you going to add any more features to the party finder soon? For example, like an option to choose between normal dungeons or prestige.
Yes. This probably won't happen for 0.31, although some of it might. So okay, let me back up. I think one of the first things that we want to add to the party finder is the ability to fill up an existing party, if that makes any sense. So whereas right now, originally Party Finder was built really for new players, especially that are trying to get into the game and trying to find a party to jump into those portals for the first time. And if you don't already know people, that's really hard. You're a new player, so you don't have a lot of in-game friends already, probably. So it's hard to kind of like group up with those folks, and that's what Party Finder was built for. But we want to expand Party Finder to benefit sort of higher level players as well, where like you and I could be in a party already, and then you just click the button and say, yeah, find us 4 other people to kind of fill the party out. So we will probably see support for that coming. And then like the question is asking, we want to do lots of different sort of filter options where you could do a party finder just for prestige portals or a party finder maybe by region. Like, you get good ping to the Los Angeles servers or whatever your region of choice is, and you want to stay in there, or maybe by language. Things of that nature are all going to be really good quality of life additions to Party Finder. We're not done with Party Finder by any means. So yeah, look for those kind of features, probably starting in 0.32. Although the fill the party feature, it's possible that'll be ready in the 0.31 patch. We just have to see how things come out. But yeah.
Makes sense. Perfect. Thank you. Next up, why are there updates that seem to be silent, meaning things in the game that are changed without any communication outlining the change?
I mean, typically, whenever we make a change, we tend to put something about it in the change notes. There are some exceptions to this, like everybody should be aware of by now. We don't really talk about drop rates or sort of reveal the workings behind the curtain in terms of how drops work. So if we make a change there, we might not talk about it, but we try to mention it, even if it's not something that we're going to go into detail on. There could be some changes that happen accidentally, or rather the build notes not mentioning them might be an accident. And especially if you're talking about build notes for the major releases, for example, the 0.30 patch, you should see the change notes before we filter them down. They're like thousands of pages long of changes. So we try to filter those down so that they're kind of the things people will be interested in. And it's possible sometimes things slip through the cracks there where it's like, this change looks like it was part of another change or something that wasn't worth putting in the build notes, but maybe it should have been. So some of that is just a human error. But realistically, I think most of the things that especially are pertinent to like the game economy or things like that, those all tend to be in the patch notes in some way or another.
Makes sense. Great. Thank you. Do you have any sneak peeks of the next leaderboard?
Yeah, so leaderboard 5 is going to be an exciting one. trying to think of how much we should reveal here. It's
Come
we'll,
on.
we'll we'll say this. It's going to be it's going to use more schematics. So the schematics, I think, are a really good way to give people a reason to explore more parts of the game. So rather than I'm just going in and crafting something, you might have to go into a specific type of portal or some part of the world to find the schematics that allow you to build that thing. And that gives us lots of really cool ways to, like I said, to reward players for playing parts of the game that they may not otherwise be in from time to time, which should keep things interesting. And we plan to do lots of those types of events over time, where maybe on, like, I don't know, the 4th of July or Valentine's Day or something like that. We'll do a Valentine's Day portal that is only there for that amount of a few days during that event, and you go get the schematic from that portal, or maybe you get one of the schematics from that portal and you have to go explore another dungeon in order to kind of complete the picture. But yeah, that's probably all I want to reveal at the moment. But I think Leaderboard 5 is going to be an exciting one. We're sort of trying something new with it, and I think people will dig it. I'm excited about it.
For sure. All right, next up, what kind of things will user-generated content in the metaverse enable us to do? For example, would it be possible to create a metaverse-like dungeon, place enemies, and engage in activities like betting on clear rewards or in-game gold?
I love this. I think the very first version of this user-generated content that affects other players is probably something like the trading table that we were talking about earlier, which isn't really a dungeon that like you were talking about, or like the question asker was talking about. But I love the idea of players being able to sort of like add portals to dungeons in their personal metaverse, and I think that's something that we've actually talked about doing, where it's like the I don't know, the summoning room or something like that. Trying to avoid the satanic references to this, but like the room where you can go do something that causes a portal to spawn into a dungeon that you couldn't get to otherwise. That's a really interesting thing to do, because maybe you could leverage other space that's in the area, or other items that are placed in the personal metaverse to modify what that dungeon does. So for example, you might be able to, like, again, trying to avoid like the sacrifice a goat thing, but whatever, you might be able to go into a space and turn on an energy generator or something like that gives you a bonus for the dungeon that you play from there, which would give you a reason for your party to come into your personal metaverse with you. Because that's really one thing that we want to try and encourage is giving players reasons to share their personal metaverse with one another, because you want people to see the cool decorations that you have and the cool spaces that you have, and that's definitely something that we want to explore more in the future. And being able to like play a dungeon master, like Dungeons and Dragons or something like that, and let people place monsters is a cool idea. I don't know when that would fit in exactly, but I would love to do something like that down the line. Yeah.
That would be so much fun. Next up, will there be any activities set for Watertown?
Activity set. I guess what this is probably referring to is that Watertown kind of turned into a ghost town after Epoch City came online. So yeah, I mean, I think we really want Epoch City to be the trading hub still. So for most things, we'll probably encourage people to go back into Epoch City, but that doesn't mean we can't have like traveling vendors, or maybe some quests that come on into Watertown from time to time that are not at Epoch City. And I think you should think of Watertown as more like an outpost than a full-blown city. Before, we had a bunch of vendors in Watertown simply because Epoch City wasn't done yet. But now that Epoch City is done, that should really be kind of a center of trade. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Perfect. Next up, are you thinking of switching to Unreal Engine 5?
Yeah, actually, we were just talking about this internally. So we've already done a lot of the work to switch to Unreal Engine 5. Actually, for anyone curious, that means we've merged the changes of the Unreal Engine from Epoch into our engine code line. So we're reasonably close to being able to do this. The problem is whenever you make a major engine change like this, there's a big cost to it. Not just in terms of the actual merge work, which we've largely already done, but you find all sorts of new bugs. Everybody on the team has to learn new pipelines, and it just, there's just a big cost to switching over engines like this. And so far, none of the features that have come into Unreal Engine 5 really benefit our game directly. There's a lot of little things like workflow improvements and bug fixes and things like that they've been doing to UE5 that are starting to add up to where it might make sense to switch. But there's not like a killer feature for us. For example, Big Time is not photorealistic, so a lot of the rendering features that are the most exciting things that Unreal Engine 5 has been working on probably wouldn't benefit us very much because it's kind of a stylized, cartoony game. But one of the things that we're talking about doing, actually, this is probably something on the before the end of the year list that should be on there, is kind of expanding Time's End a little bit more and adding more interesting features to that. And Unreal Engine 5 has some pretty cool like outdoor procedural foliage tech that we might be able to leverage. So whenever we start working on that might be a good time to switch. But that's kind of where we're at right now, is we're sort of like, it's there. We look at it from time to time and go, is there anything worth switching for right now? And so far the answer's been no, but that might change in the near future. And like I said, we've been trying to keep on top of it and make sure that whenever Epic releases a major content version or engine version update, that we merge all those things over to our side, so that when we do want to change, it's a fairly it's as painless as it can be, but there's always going to be some pain involved.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you. All right. Next up after that, will there be a faster transportation method in the future, like a hoverboard or a mount?
Yeah, we want to do mounts. And a hoverboard is kind of like a version of a mount, I guess. So the short answer is yes. I know, I'm sure you're asking, the next question would be when mount? And I can't give you a hard answer on that, but sometime around when pets go in, probably. So maybe like the 0.33 time range or beyond. Again, that could all change as priorities shift around. But mounts, again, I think leverage themselves very well to be NFTs, to tie into the rest of the economy in lots of cool ways. So that's definitely something that we want to do, and it's been on the roadmap for a while. So yeah.
Cool. I just want to be able to ride a T-Rex. That's it. I can die happy if that's the case.
Yeah. Actually, raptors are one of the first ones we've been working on. We have done a little bit of work on this already too. So
very cool. That's awesome. All right. Next up, people say that the game is difficult for those who enter a dungeon alone, and the drops are often lower compared to a party of 6 players. Is it possible to benefit those who enter a dungeon alone or with fewer players?
Well, so this is true, right? Like the game is definitely, we think the game is more fun to play with a party. So early on in the production of Big Time, we sort of made the choice that, yeah, let's be a party game. We want Big Time to be played as a party because it's more fun, more engaging. So there's lots of things in the game that are kind of pushing you that direction. That being said, one of the ideas that we were kicking around as far as the new Time's End work goes is that perhaps there's some shared areas like Time's End that would have more solo content in them. These wouldn't be dungeons. I think dungeons will almost always still remain sort of like you complete the party you complete the dungeon with a party. But we want to add more like solo quest lines and solo content to the wide open kind of shared zones. So that might be kind of the major thing coming up that you see that kind of lends itself more to solo people. But the party finder and other systems like that were really intended to help the solo players as well. If like you don't have any friends in the game yet, or none of your friends are online or whatever, that it should be easy enough, hopefully, to go click the button and wait and queue up and actually find a party to jump in and play with other people that are in a similar situation. So I guess the answer is kind of yes and no.
Great, thank you. I know this is a very big, highly asked question. Any idea when the last wipe will take place?
Oh yeah, so we don't take wipes lightly. We didn't do one for quite a while before the last one, and we don't ever plan on doing them, but I would say it's very likely that we'll have to do another one before too long, right? I mean, I don't have any reason why we would need to do one right now, but something always comes up where maybe we screw around with the early game balance enough that like all the old character data is like it's sort of broken, or doesn't make any sense anymore. That said, I think that we'll probably try to do them less and less often as time goes on. Like you probably already saw between, I don't actually know when the last wipe was before 0.30, but it was quite a while before that. So, we went quite a long time before we did a wipe, and probably it'll be at least that long before we do it again. But you never know. If something happens where a bug is in the system and we find that like the game economy is all screwed up, like everybody has 10 times more gold than they should, for example, we might have to do a wipe just to kind of clean things up. It's usually it comes down to either do we do a wipe or do we do some other kind of piecemeal thing where we, take everybody's gold away or something like that, which often ends up feeling a little bit worse than just doing a wipe would, because it's not fair. Anyway, so we don't intend to do any wipes, but that doesn't mean we won't have to sometime down in the future. And as far as when the last time we'll do one, I really couldn't tell you. It just depends on how things go.
So many factors. Makes a lot of sense. All right. Now, second to the last question. When will we have a season 1 that's open to the public? I know, another when question.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of similar to the other question asking about when early access ends, when we open up to the rest of the public. So I'll refer back to that answer for more detail, but I guess the short answer is probably sooner than you think. Can't announce any more details at the moment, but there's a bunch of other really exciting stuff coming online that is going to happen at the same time. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you. All right. Last question for the day. How developed is the overall story and how will it evolve? Additionally, will there be sub-stories, solo player quests, and story quests available for just solo players?
So to answer the last part first, because it kind of feeds into what I was talking about with the new times in solo portals pretty well. That is definitely something that we want to explore. I think delivering story through solo quests actually works a little bit better than trying to do it through a party quests sometimes, or at least it takes less effort to make it. Like, for example, if you're trying to deliver a story to a party and the party is like running all in 6 different directions and nobody's paying attention, one person might care about the story and is trying to read the dialogue or learn about the lore, and everybody else is like, let's go. So it's always a little bit of a conflict as players, have different appetites for those things. So a solo story quest makes a lot of sense, and I think if we do those kind of like solo zones that I was talking about, maybe Times End is the first one of those where there's more solo content in there. That would be a good opportunity to do a little bit more story exposition. And to answer the first part of the question, there's a pretty fleshed out story arc, but it's pretty high level, right? So the story arc talks about the big events in the story, doesn't necessarily talk about what every character is doing at all times. And so that's stuff that we're fleshing out as time goes on. One of the things that we want to do soon, I don't know exactly when, hopefully that's another one of these this year elements, is offer a way for players to kind of find bits of the story by exploring and playing the game. So you might like jump into a dungeon and find like an artifact that was part of Benjamin Franklin's apparatus and on one of his adventures or whatever. And you take it back to Benjamin Franklin and he goes, oh yeah, I remember this thing. Let me tell you a story about when I took it over to whatever, and he tells you a little bit of lore surrounding that item that you found. And the more items you found, the more kind of exposition that you get and the more you can piece together. So that's something that we're looking at doing in the future. And I think that plays very nicely with the rest of the game loop. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate you taking the time. And to all the community watching. And with that, we wrap up our AMA with Matt Tonks. Thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule, Matt.
Sure thing, yeah. Thanks for all the questions, everybody. That's great.
Of course. And I know that this will definitely get the community talking, and I can't wait to hear their discussions. And to the viewer, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic day and happy adventuring.